So that's bright enough I can read it from the tractor. So I don't want to cut here. I do want to cut here. Hey everybody, thanks for watching Firewood in the Field today. My name's Matt. I'm happy that you're here. I'm bringing the video to you today to share a couple things that I found have worked well for me in the wood yard and to share something new that I'm eager to find out how well it works. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I make these rain caps. I've had a couple comments a while back on my videos asking me to do a video where I cut up some of these rain caps. So I'm not going to go over how I, cut the IBC cages. There's a ton of videos out there with different ways you can cut the cages and make them work. Something I don't know that I've seen too many videos out though are talking about cutting the rain caps at a diagonal like this and then painting them. Now I've learned a couple things over the couple years I've been using them, and I'll talk about that a little later in the video, but that one doesn't have hardly any paint on it and the other ones next to it do. I'm going to cover that. This I find works well for me. Now, I'm a small-time producer. I don't pile my wood, I stack into totes. I got about 12 cords out here in the wood yard, and for me this is working well. I like having the totes on a pallet, and I'm switching over to mostly plastic pallets. I find it does a couple things. It helps keep another moisture barrier from the earth. It also keep all the grass and vegetation clear around it. That also helps keeping moisture away. But then in the wintertime, if you need to come out here and get a tote of firewood with your tractor and the ground's a bit frozen, if you just pick up the tote, you might pull up a whole bunch of sod with it. So I've found that having them on top of a pallet is much better. What I like to do is I just nudge the tote with the tractor a little bit before I lift it, in that situation. And if it's frozen, it usually will snap the tote free of the pallet, and then I can lift the tote up all by itself without ripping up the ground or taking a big chunk of sod with me. Something else though that I do is I write the date I split the firewood onto the tote, and I usually put what kind of wood it is. I just abbreviate, like if it's ash, I just put an A. If it's ash and maple, I put A-M. If it's oak, I put an O, or maybe I write oak because I can write 3 letters. Problem I have is it fades. So I got an idea from Todd's Outside again a while back. He did a video using some luggage tags. I've got something similar that I want to show you. All right, so you can see some of the cages, they still have like a panel on them. Some don't have any at all. So when they have a panel, I can write on there. But this one here, I don't know if the camera will even pick it up. It's ash. I split on 5/24/2026. So that was with the Sharpie permanent marker. It didn't stay all that well. And now I split this tote on the same day, and on that label it stayed pretty good. Conversely, I go over here to the bare metal. Now that's A. That says A/M. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. So this is ash and maple, and I split it on 6/7/2026, and it's faded even worse than the one over there. And the ones like this, where I don't have a panel to write on at all, I usually just write like on a cross beam or up and down. So I had stuff written right there, but you can see it's completely worn away. Right in there I had a little code and a date written, but it's completely gone, just weathered away. All right, so what I'm gonna try to better capture my notes on the totes of when I split are some tags. I'll put a link in the video description. I got these on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check them out. Not sponsored. I bought this with my own money, but they are equipment tags. So these are yellow, plastic. These are like what you would see if you go to like a small engine repair shop or a tractor dealership. They might have a tag like this. They'll put a little zip tie or something through it and have it hanging on the steering wheel of your tractor with your name and your phone number. And I noticed that those usually hold up quite a while. Those are out in the weather. They're out in the elements. Maybe they're not out for, as long as we have our firewood seasoning, but it was cheap enough to give it a shot. I thought, why not? So it's all plastic. There's no paper or anything on it. It's advertised as weather resistant and fade resistant and all that stuff. And I'm just going to use a zip tie, and I'm going to put it on the tote. And I'm going to try to do a little bit of a test. So I've got, just your regular Sharpie permanent marker. This one says it's industrial super permanent ink. Yeah, industrial super permanent. And I've got a paint marker. It says it's decorative, but I thought maybe, you know, maybe paint would, instead of it just absorbing in, maybe the paint would stay on there and actually stay a little longer. And I'm also going to try another Sharpie, a metallic silver. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera. Metallic silver. So I've used these, like I use this when I change oil in my tractor, and the oil filter is usually black. This is what I write on the filter with like the date and the hours usually on the tractor, and it never seems to come off. Now, it's not in full sun all day long. My tractors stay in a barn, but I figured I'll try these 3 things. I'll write the date for this tote right here on this card with all 3 markers. We'll just see how it goes. I'll see. I just opened the paint pen and walked off camera to get the date. I'm going to put this on my most recently split tote, which I split on July 23rd. It's a mix of ash and maple. So that's my newest wood. It may not be my last wood to go out because I got a lot of oak over here. It's been seasoning for a long time, but I shouldn't need to touch that one for a while. All right, so there's my little card filled out. Now I messed up myself. I did my Sharpies. I should have done the same order as the other one. You can see the silver one. Like I said, the tip on that marker was kind of smashed a little bit, so it doesn't write real clean. But this is already dried. It's not super hot out here, but it's hot enough if you're just standing in the sun, you know. But I'm gonna zip tie this to the tote. Now normally, you know, I wouldn't take up this much space. Once I've got these established and I'm using them, I would just have the date and then maybe like oak, ash, whatever it is that's in there. And then when I want to write a new date on there, I can just draw a line through it and write another one down below. And you have the whole back side as well. But I want to see which ink will last longer. All right, yeah, there it is. So that's bright enough I can read it from the tractor. And I'll just see which of those markings is more legible over time and report back with how it goes. Okay, now let's move over to where I have a bunch of tote tanks ready to be cut up, and I'll show you how I make these rain caps. All right, we're over here in the shade now. I'm gonna start cutting on one of these bladders here. So I've already cleaned all these, and for the paint step, that's something that's crucial. I'll talk about that here in just a second. But when I mark these to cut, you know, it's not required, but I like having a line to follow, so I at least just get myself a straight edge and make marks where I want it to go. Anything will work. I've got a yardstick that I probably gave like a quarter for at the hardware store a while back. Key thing to remember when you cut them this way is mark your lines where you're not cutting the valve, right? Or maybe that's why I mark lines at all. That's the key thing, because you're going to cut like diagonally down the side, but you're also going to be cutting on corners. So you make sure you want to cut the corners opposite of where the valve is. Well, I'll just flip it over and show you my line and show you what I'm talking about. I flip it on its side to start, and I make note of where the valve is. So I don't want to cut here. I do want to cut here. So this is where I mark my line. And this isn't exact. Just hold your straight edge up there and just do what best you can. And I just kind of freehand it a little bit to get over the corner. I'm going to go the opposite corner and do the same. Kind of just freehand it my way up a little bit. Now, I've got 2 marks. Hope the camera's picking it up, but I can see my ink mark down there. I can see my ink mark up here. Now just connect those lines. Now I just got one side to mark, so I'm going to flip this over and mark the other side. There you go. So now I'm just going to get my Sawzall and cut it. And I'm not too picky about what blade I use for this. This was a metal blade that I used to cut some totes up a little while back. About anything, it's not very difficult to cut these. I have found kind of, you can get start on a corner where you can get yourself started first to get a hole in it. It works a little better. Flip it over, cut the last side. There you are. It's not rocket science, but I hope it's helpful to somebody. Let me get a few more of these cut up and then we'll paint some. I'll still stay tuned. I'll show you what paint I use. We'll talk about the paint a little bit and what's worked for me and what hasn't. Be right back. All right, I don't remember if I mentioned this earlier. I want to say it before. It's UV protection, and I didn't do it that way initially, but I've heard, I don't remember if it was old guy Firewood. I think it might have been him, or Dan with Back 40. I remember somebody was showing those IBC tote covers you can buy that are almost like some kind of a canvas tent material, and they were complaining that they used the tanks, and after enough years in the sun, they got brittle and they would crack. This paint seems to provide UV protection. I haven't had any of the tanks get to where they want to crack or break or anything like that, the ones that have been painted. The paint that I use is this Rust-Oleum Camouflage Black, non-reflective, well not black, this is a Deep Forest Green. I sometimes use the flat black, but my favorite is this green, and then I like the Flat Earth Brown. And this says on it somewhere that it is acceptable to stick to plastic. I think that's the key, one of the key things if you're gonna do this and you buy an aerosol paint, get one that says it's okay for plastics. So for these totes, I have cleaned them. And I recommend that if you're gonna paint, because the paint won't stick. Now, we're not painting a Rolls Royce here, right? So you don't need to go crazy with the cleaning and scuffing and all that. I suppose you could if you wanted to, but for me, I like to hit them with a pressure washer and maybe put a little degreaser of some kind. You know, you could use Simple Green. I had Crud Cutter. I mixed some Crud Cutter in some water. I put it in one of them pump sprayers because I had 8 of these totes to hit. And I went ahead and blasted them off. And don't know if I mentioned it, but these 8 totes have been around the side of my building for 2-3 years. And they've gotten really funky, monkey, and a little bit of mildew. So I wanted to clean them off real good. All right, let me move the camera down here. I'll try to find a spot out of the sun if I can. And I want to show you how far a can will go. So I'm going to have 2 cans, one in each hand. And I will just spray until they're both out, and we'll see how many rain caps are covered by 2 cans of paint. All right, I have learned to take off my watch when I do this so it doesn't get overspray. Sorry about the crazy sun on me here, but it's what I got. And always a good idea to wear, you know, a cheap pair of these gloves here. unless you want to have paint on your hands for a long time, which maybe you do. I'm going to probably have to give a safety disclaimer and say you should wear a respirator or some kind of mask or something. But I am outdoors, and I kind of like the smell of paint. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. All right, just to show you, I'm being honest here, we got 2 unused cans. I'm going to shake them up for a bit, see how many totes we get. Well, 2 rattle cans. Got 1 and I'm going to call it 1.5 tote tanks painted, roughly, give or take. So you can see where I left off at. All right, well, hope this was helpful to anybody who wants to try to copy the idea. You know, this is not a Matt at Firewood in the Field original. I hadn't seen anybody painting them though, so that crazy stuff I got to blame on myself. But you know, this is a way that works for me. Doesn't work for everybody. Maybe you don't use totes, but if you do, I've had good luck with putting the totes on top of a pallet or a skid to get it off the dirt a little bit. And then I like these rain caps. I like this style because when they're on the tote full of firewood, they hang over the edge. Feels like they shed the water off the firewood better. They shed snow and rainwater better, I think, than if you just cut the flat top and stick it on there. It's just personal preference. Do what works for you. But hey, I appreciate you being here with me today. From Matt at Firewood in the Field. See you next time.